Okay, we're going to bring this finance meeting to order. It's August 10th. It is 6:31 p.m. All committee members are in attendance. And I know we have a special guest this evening, talk about a program that he represents. And then do we want to start with that? Or do we want to discuss other monies we need to bring to appropriation for the next meeting? Okay.
Also, do your special guest.
Okay, sounds great. It is your floor. Yes, sir.
Oh boy.
No pressure. While he's handing these out, I'll just say this is Al Dolezal with Rita. He came down here once for a general council meeting, I think.
About a year ago.
About a year ago. We, of course, as he knows and as we all know, we've had a few things going on at City Hall since. And
Yes, good to see you as well. Thank you.
You can get my copy of that gentleman over there who was already in the one.
Oh, yeah, we gave him one.
Okay, great. Good to see you again.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Nice to meet you. All right.
Same here. Appreciate the opportunity and the invite to come down and talk to the committee on the Regional Income Tax Agency. I was down here about a year ago and did an overview of the services that we provide, et cetera. There's probably some new people in our council, so I wanted to be able to give you an update. Give you a copy of the presentation, my card there, my business contact information are on there. So any questions you may have afterwards, just give me a shout, email, whatever. Okay, we'll go through this, and now I'll ring a bell when I go to the different page numbers. That's like a kid saying, no. Page 2, in the beginning, God looked down on the village of Eden and decided that Adam needed some help with his income tax. Rita was formed in 1971. There was 38 communities up in Northeast Ohio area. Decided that if they banded together, the economy of scale type of thing comes into play with many of the functions. So have one group do functions for all 38 instead of every municipality having their own collections, their own customer service. And so that's how the Regional Income Tax Agency was formed, to serve these 38 communities. Right now we have, when you count the JEDs, then we have about 400 members in the Regional Income Tax that we represent. We're rather unique in the agency in that our members own us. So it's different than maybe some others where a city may have a tax department and they do the taxes for some of the other surrounding communities on that, and they bill them accordingly or whatever. Well, we're owned by the members, and we have straight formulas that we use to allocate the dollars of what each member would be responsible for and payment for to allow Rita to operate, run, et cetera. So obviously it's in our best interest to, since we're doing the service for our owners, is to be lean and mean as we possibly can and provide enhanced revenue opportunities for them and all that good stuff. We're located at our headquarters in Brecksville, Ohio. It's a suburb of Cleveland. That's where our main location is. On that, I personally work out of our Worthington office outside of Columbus there. We have about 20 people that operate out there. I'd say 19 are work from home, including me. Yeah, that's a great thing. But, and we also have regional or satellite offices in some of the Cleveland area as well on that. We do about 1.9 billion in revenue for our members. On that, some are extremely large. Youngstown is one we have. Cuyahoga Falls, both of them are about 50,000 population. Hamilton just came on board. It's a suburb of Cincinnati. They're about that size as well. We also have the very small Bryce, which is a suburb of Columbus. Population is about 100 on that. So We do have a wide gamut. I would say probably the average, if you took all 400 and found the midpoint, it's probably about the size where Nelsonville is, between 5, 6, 7,000 on that. So we're heavily involved with the small communities on that. And that really, that's where the tax advantages or the expense advantages come into play, for them not having to do a lot of the functions that come in with the collecting and administering tax ordinances. Page 4 is a couple of municipalities that may be near. Somewhat, I'm not too familiar with the layout. Trimble is in Athens County, so that's probably pretty near where Nelsonville is at. And then there are the other ones, some been on board for so many years, some just came on board primarily about 2 years ago for them. We're a full collection, looking at page 5. We do soup and nuts, if you will. We do the registration, so we have an organization that's their main function, is to make sure they can sift out all the taxpayers, residents in that community, to make sure we got an account on, and they're paying their fair share of taxes for that community. We also do the actual tax collection, which gets involved in the auditing and software errors, if you will, that come out to resolve issues with particular accounts. The payments, billing, all those ones that come on there. And the other one is your collections. So we do have a collections department, similar to not quite the Pitbull type of collection, but they handle accounts. They'll send out letters. Sometimes they'll get a little nasty, but their objective is either get a payment for the balance due, or at least get them on a payment plan, so that there's additional revenue flowing into the municipality from those accounts that have a balance due. If that doesn't work out, we also have a legal department, so we can file suit against them, bring them to a subpoena, get a judgment, etc., and hopefully we don't have to take them to court and then we file suit against them. But I'll just cover briefly those three main functions. Page 6 identifies our registration identification department. It's a full-time department we have there. And as I mentioned before, their objective is to identify residents or businesses in a municipality that we don't have an account for whatever reason. Maybe it's a resident that moved in there and wasn't aware of a tax ordinance, etc. So there's some special programs we have underway to help us do with those functions. Page 7 is a couple of the special programs they have. We're fairly unique in a way because of the size of RETA. The state of Ohio allows us, because we have over in IRS, I should say also, because we collect more than $100 million a year, we fall into the category like the city of Cleveland, city of Columbus, the very, very large cities that have 100 million or more in tax revenue collections. They have access, and we have access to IRS tax returns. So every year, the IRS, when they're done their auditing and their billing, et cetera, they'll send us a copy of by zip code and say, here's all the tax returns we got. We'll bump them against our database. If there's a hole found that, taxpayers filed a federal return, but we don't have an account for them, okay, then that generates a message to one of our auditors in that department. We'll contact them via letter or phone call and say, hey, we've got a mismatch here. Send us your W-2s that you did to the IRS. We'll set up an account and get you going or whatever that's needs to be done. Similar arrangements with the state of Ohio. After they're done for the year with their tax, they send us a copy of their tax returns. We'll bump them against ours. We go a little bit further with the state of Ohio because the IRS is extremely sensitive on confidentiality. The group, this FTI group I mentioned here, is they have to be so secure. They're under lock and key in a separate room in Rexville, and no one's not even our executive director's not even allowed in there because of on the screen you could have a tax return, a federal return, and that's a big no-no for anybody to be able to see that on that. But under for the state of Ohio returns, that confidentiality is not as strict, if you will, as the IRS has. So what we do on there, if we find a mismatch, we'll actually create an account for that taxpayer. We'll send them a letter and say, congratulations, you are now part of our database, and, we don't have a return from you for, X years or whatever. Send us your W-2s, or if your Schedule Cs, whatever income you had, so we can do your returns on that as well. So this helps us greatly in identifying taxpayers that are not registered, if you will, within the municipality. The third item on there is W-2s. By law, the withholding or the employers by law have to submit a copy of all the W-2s that they issued out to their employees. They have to give us a copy of that W-2. The larger ones, they'll give us an electronic transfer of data, which is great because we can then put that right into our tax system. And with those W-2s, if we don't have a return, well, we at least got some of the data. It may not be all their W-2s, but at least we have something. We can do a return for it, send them a letter and say, congratulations, we just did your 2020 tax return, and oh, by the way, you owe penalty and interest of X dollars or whatever. So there's another way of using the tax information that we have to identify taxpayers and to go the next step farther and doing returns for them. Page 8 is just some additional databases that we can access to address records. Some key ones there, the third bullet there, the post office. Whenever we send out a letter, the post office can't deliver it because the taxpayer moved. Many times they'll say their new address is ABC. So automatically from that record of the post office, again, goes right into our tax system. Our tax system can automatically update the database, so we don't have to have somebody sitting there with a paper document keying this information in. As you'll see further, our main focus is to try to get away from people doing the function. Okay, if the information is available on one computer, we try our best to get it directly into our computer and let our computer do the massaging rather than generate a piece of paper that you have to manually enter. It's like the Walmart, Target mentality that they have their customers do their checkout for them. So in the same way, we have by filing your return over our website, we have the taxpayers doing our keying for us by putting their information into the system. It saves us a ton of money by not having to have employees do all that functionality on that. The collection function, administration, on page 9, we have a full-time customer service department. When somebody calls the read main number, they get transferred in. It's a typical customer service. But economy of scale comes into here. A group of 30 agents can handle a lot more than 10 groups of 3, whatever. So, and that's what we have. So we have the almost 400 municipalities all being handled out of the same customer service group on that, whatever. Auditing, we have an army of auditors at our disposal. Both from a department that handles business returns, another one that does strictly individual returns. If our tax system identifies maybe a little wrinkle, that it'll dump it out to an auditor to take a look at and tell the auditor, that last year they had X amount of income, this year it's this amount, something doesn't appear right, check it out. Or last year they had a Schedule C, this year they don't, or maybe we're missing it, whatever. So our auditors can dig into that particular area. Also, through our website, the taxpayers, as I mentioned, they can file their tax returns. So we've tremendously enhanced their ability to file a return. Initially, it was just that current year, but now they can file past years in there. And not only just with W-2s, they can do a Schedule C business, they can do a Schedule E rental property. All that input can be put in there. And again, that concept of keeping it out of human intervention from a cost standpoint, it is also maybe as an error standpoint as well. Whatever. Looking at page 11, the tax preparers, there's numerous tax software systems out there that they have. One of the biggies on here you see there is H&R Block. About 2 years ago, we finally got the interface down with H&R Block. So anybody going to H&R Block to do their returns, they can now file electronically right into our tax system. So that's a ton of returns we can get through electronic transfer as well, without the human intervention on that. Some additional items on page 12. We have a 24/7, taxpayers can go through our website, and list some of the functions that they can have. Instead of having the taxpayer call customer service and say, what is the balance on my account? They can go through our website, or they can call the next one on there, our IDR system. You put in their social and a password or whatever, and the system will tell them your current balance is $3.02. If you want to make the payment now, they can actually make a payment over there. Again, keeping the minimizing the human intervention and letting the computer do its thing. Also on the administration end, we distribute the funds that we collect to the municipality twice a month. First work day of every month, no matter Monday through Friday, whatever it falls on the work day, that's deposit day. So the municipality should expect a deposit into their checking or bank account. The first work day of the month. The second deposit is usually the 10th work day of the month, which falls like the 14th, 15th day of the month itself. So rather than end of the month, we give you a big chunk of money and you have to wait a whole month. We supply it in 2 chunks. That way you get your money faster from that standpoint there. Also, we have to try to not necessarily encourage, but to keep reminding taxpayers about, hey, it's that time again. In January, we used to send out postcards, and you can imagine with a couple million accounts times whatever the postage is on a postcard, that was a substantial expense. So rather than doing postcards now, we use social media. So we'll have radio ads, put it in the newspaper on there. We'll have cell phones, those pop-up things that everybody hates. Well, one of them might be ours saying, congratulations, that time of year again, or whatever. Just keep people aware of it's that time that they don't use the excuse, well, I forgot. They must have been living in a hole or something. Anyway. The third part was the collections legal on page 14. Again, a full-time collections department. Oh, I forgot to, let me back up. If we can go back to page 7 on those, the IRS program in state of Ohio. The fourth bullet down on each of those, what I did is I looked at comparable municipalities to what Nelsonville is, population and the makeup of business residentials or whatever. And I went back to 2021, the last year we had. And under the IRS data interchange program, we collected a little over $37,000 that particular year just from that one particular program, because we were able to identify an account that we didn't have, and we could create a tax returns for them. Similarly with state of Ohio, the fourth check mark down there, an additional $1,000 for these communities. We collected additional revenue because we had programs in place to try to catch that. Going back to page 14, our collections people, on the average, they collected for a municipality like Nelsonville would be almost $26,000 that particular year in additional revenue, just from our collections people going after them with either a payment plan or a full collection, if you will. 2 other programs that they get involved with. One is called our non-filing program. So every year it's with the authorization from the municipality. They say, yeah, I want to run this non-filer program. Doesn't cost anything additional to the municipality. We go through the database, and anybody that hadn't filed a return for the last 5 years, either one or all of the 5 years, we send them a nice letter saying, we understand you've got a candidate, all your tax returns, whatever excuse could be. And we try to flush out some of these people that, again, they hadn't filed a return. Go down to the fourth check mark there. The programs that we've run for typical comparable municipalities like Nelsonville, we generated an additional $27,000 of revenue just by sending these letters out to them and getting them to file return, making the payments on it. So there's another big chunk of dollars that can be obtained. The administrative subpoena program is like stage 2 of that. That's an option for municipality again. With that, as we send out another letter to the ones that hadn't responded back to the non-filer and say, we tried to play nice, we gave you all kinds of excuses or whatever, but now we got to start playing hardball. If you don't respond, then you're subject to legal ramifications on that. From the administrative subpoena, generated almost $10,000 for a municipality comparable to what Nelsonville had. Legal department, your typical legal, if you will. We have paralegals, attorneys. They file court documents. They attend lawsuits we have against a particular taxpayer for whatever reason. We try to get a judgment against them on that particular case and get them to pay on that. The last check mark down there is that we collected, again, a comparable community, $10,000. That's what Nelson had, and it costs about $900 in court costs. The municipality would be on the hook, if you will, for the court costs involved. But typically, those court costs are passed back to the taxpayer who's incurred that particular lawsuit, so they ended up paying that, whatever. But there's a pretty sizable return for $900. They get $10,000, so that's a pretty good rate of return on that. Just to show another example on page 17 of how we try to be as innovative as we can on the information that we have in the system. The third bullet there talks about a Pepsi. You probably never heard that acronym before, but anyway, it's we really had a stretch to get the initials to line up. Processing employer provided salary information. Instead of wages, we had to use salary in order to get an S in there. But anyway, basically what that is as I mentioned, we go back and if we have a W-2 in file for somebody who hadn't filed a return, we'll do the return and send them a bill. Okay. And that's basically what that program is. We've been operating that for 4 years now, tax year 16 through 19. We have completed, and again, almost $2,000 in additional revenue for the municipality of the size of Johnstown on that. But it just shows how we're trying to be as creative as we can, as aggressive as we can to generate additional revenue for our member municipalities. Page 18 is kind of a gee whiz thing. We stay abreast of what's going on in the industry. So as tax law changes are coming about, we're involved in many of these conferences that are listed down there. So if there's something coming down the pipe from the state legislature that is going to impact the tax ordinances, we'll send out notices to all the members saying, here's something that could affect you. There's a couple things coming down. One that you may already know, they're tinkering with that late filing fee. Right now, it could be $25 a month up to 6 months, where they're looking at just shaving it down to a maximum of $25. And the first year, just forget, don't even charge them anything. Well, that takes a lot of meat out of late filing fee. If somebody knows about $25, I'll just wait another couple months or whatever. So we're involved in the struggle with the state legislature on that. So stay tuned. Page 19. That's the main item under technology. The tax system we have is ours. Several years ago, Rita formed had a bunch of programmers and system analysts, whatever. They built, designed, whatever it's called RETAX. Keep catching me. It's our tax system. Advantage to that is that when there's changes that come about, we're responsible and we can have the timeline set up so we can do all of our changes in our tax system. We're not dependent upon a third-party tax system that is it tax system you use? Is it gas?
Ego.
Ego, okay. But then anytime
Just
there's a
like-
big change thing, you gotta go to them and say, when am I gonna get, whatever, and hopefully, they can supply that in a timely fashion, or maybe a cost involved on that, but,
they don't support it anymore. It's so old.
oh, really?
Yeah, and they don't have an updated version because nobody wants to make income tax software in Ohio because the state legislature changes the rules so often.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can see the little trademark on our software. It says like 1989 or something. It's too old.
Okay.
It's too old.
Yeah, it could be an issue.
Yeah.
But, so we have our own, software system that we, maintain, et cetera. 20 and 21, I won't bore you by doing a summary of what I already, told you about. The meat of this presentation in the last couple of pages, that I want to emphasize. Based on some information that Taylor gave me, we did a rough estimate of a cost that would be involved if Nelsonville honored us with being a member of the Regional Income Tax Agency. Roughly, it's about 50,000, plus or minus, a couple of thousand, the best we could earmark. Okay. So the things I talked about, all those different functionalities, that's what would be available to Nelsonville for roughly 50,000, which is about 3% of your collections, just maybe a little bit less than that. But the key item is on that last page, page 23. Those programs I mentioned as I was going along, I kind of summarized them here. The federal IRS program, the state ads, the non-filer, the Pepsi, whatever. You total all of those up, what we generated for additional revenue from a comparable municipality as Nelsonville is, and a little over $100,000 of additional revenue. So if you can see paying 50,000, you get 100 and some thousand back, whatever. That's a pretty good investment or whatever, plus all the functionality that comes into play and the tax system you got maybe being marginal, you get state of the art on that as well. So any questions? I know I probably went pretty fast, but I think the last slide really is a key one to focus on. We can generate some additional revenue over and above the regular revenue collections because of the programs and the data we have access to.
So perfect. So real quick then, so basically the program we're using now, eGov, if we were to utilize your services, then we would no longer utilize that programming and we would be using your RETAX.
That's correct.
All right, perfect.
The tax administrator, finance director, auditor, whatever, in Nelsonville, they would have a secure data link from a computer here right into our tax system. So you can look up people's accounts, you can do returns, and all those type of functions. Some municipalities, they're in a hands-off mode. So all I want that link for is to give me my reports twice a month, tell me how much money I got in the bank. And anybody that calls, gives a return, they send them a reader, which is fine. And that's what we're there for.
As far as, when you find folks that are late filers, if there's penalties, is that something that you guys impose or is that something we decide that we want to impose and determine those limits?
It's up to the municipality to make that determination. There's a form we have that is filled out, whatever, basically it's checking some boxes. Do you want us to do all the assessment of penalty and interest? We can make those decisions for you. Do you want to set a limit? Okay, if the penalties look like it's going to be over $200, then we need to bring you in to say, is this okay? Do you want to do it all? So anytime we get a taxpayer calling in, then we send you an email to say, here's the situation. Here's what we would recommend based upon what this taxpayer's account is. Tell us what you want to do. So yeah, we've got those three different options, if you will. There are many municipalities that are using each one of those types of things. So whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay, and then it kind of answers my next question too. If they do a payment plan, is there interest on that amount?
Typically, when a payment plan starts, it freezes penalty and interest.
Okay.
Okay,
So there would be potentially penalty and interest on, their late filing, but securing a payment plan
yes, that,
negates that, so.
that locks it in.
And then, but any penalties and interest that would accrue on that, is that, I mean, you guys still take out your percentage of whatever you collect of that, I'm assuming?
That's correct.
Okay,
And typically, how that works is, let's say we collected $1,000, and just to get an easy number so I can multiply. Typically, we withhold 3% as a whole retainer fee, if you will. So out of that $1,000, 3% or $30, if I did that right, we would hold back and we'd give you the other $970, and that would be a direct deposit into your checking account or whatever bank account, I should say. At the end of the year, well, actually, it's typically around the March, Aprilish timeframe. We'll go back to the previous year. We'll determine what Rita's costs were. Okay, all the salaries, expenses, computers, updated software we needed to get, the property tax on building, the whole gamut. It may come to, again, just throwing it, it's probably around 25 million that's been run the last couple of years. And then we have these formulas put in place. We look at the collections. So whatever percent of collections that we did for Nelsonville, say we collected $1,000 for Nelsonville, but for the total of those 400 municipalities, we collected 5 million. You do, 1,000 divided by 5 million is a 0.00, whatever
right, so
percent.
it's prorated.
Yeah, and then that 20 million expense is multiplied by that percent, and that's how much you're allocated. So obviously, a Youngstown would pay tremendously larger share because there's more activity. The other piece is transactions. So that's when taxpayer files a return. Okay, they call in, they make a payment. There's some action that we have to do associated with their account. That's labeled a transaction. So obviously, the larger municipality had more transactions than a small, rural, heavily residential versus business type of an environment. And the same thing applies for Nelsonville. We did 10,000 transactions. Overall, we had 10 million. You do a division, and that's how the allocation comes about on that. And that's the way we try to estimate how many transactions would Nelsonville have if they were on board. Because we already knew the collections amount, what Taylor gave us, and we did the math or whatever, and that's how this roughly $50,000 number popped out. And then,
Perfect. And then, so how is the money actually collected? So when people are filling out their Nelsonville income tax forms, are they sending that money or check to you, to your organization? Or are they bringing it, like right now we have folks that drop off their income tax payment here at the city building? How is that collected? And then if they drop it off here, how are you guys getting your cut of that?
yeah, many taxpayers, they'll fill out the paper form, write a check, put it in. We have a lockbox with a key bank is what we use, and it goes directly into that PO box. Key bank takes it, they process the check, they send us the return over, whatever, and away we go. Others, if they may drop it off here. Some municipalities, they get the form, the W-2s, they actually will access the system and do the return. Other ones, they'll fax it into us. Okay, what the municipality can do is two options. Say they have a check, or some people walk in and want to pay cash. And then we don't accept cash. I wouldn't want that in the mail. But if they pay cash to the municipality, they say $100. Taylor walks down to the bank, makes a deposit, $100. He just fills out a form. It says, ABC customer. Here's a social. I got $100 cash. It's going to be applied to tax you, whatever. You can fax me the form. I send it over to our finance. They apply it to the account. That way you don't have to send us enough for us to do, same with the check. If they drop off a check, you can either mail the check to that PO box with our bank of cash, or, if it's made out to City of Nelsonville, you can cash the check, put it in your bank, just fill out a form, and we'll update the database accordingly.
Okay, perfect. That makes sense. So we have the ability to help process that as well.
Yes.
I don't mean to be hogging all this. So
You keep asking my questions.
hey, I got a whole list here.
I know.
So,
I've been crossing them all.
let's see here. I'm gonna answer all your questions for you, Mr. Booth. So, The,
Cruise control then.
rental property owners, in that section there, registration of renters, is that, something that the renters need to submit or landlords need to submit? Like how do they gather that information?
It depends on how it's put into the tax ordinance. I believe it's, well, the one I'm used to is section 23. Some municipalities, they just leave it blank, so they don't do anything with the renters. Others specifically state in there, at the end of every year, December 31st, that the owner of that rental property needs to submit to the tax administrator, so that's either the city itself or RETA, if we're acting on your behalf, a list of all your renters, okay? And and they may not have the social security numbers, which is fine, you get a name, address, we can do a search in our database. Because renters typically are real hard to nail down, because they move so quick. By the time you know where they're at, they've already checked out and they're going to their city or whatever. So they're supposed to send that list in, and then we can verify, we can send the renter a letter and saying, this is an income tax, it's not property tax. Because the conversation I have with many renters, they think it's property tax. It's, I don't pay property tax, I rent, well, we're income tax oriented. The other issue is, item, not only just getting the renter to have an account, file, whatever, but rental income for that property owner, that's also taxable. So we want to let the property owner know that if you have property in Nelsonville, the profits you made off of that property, it's taxable with the Nelsonville, 1%, 2% or whatever, to the city of Nelsonville. So, if they submit something, at least we know who the renter of the property owners are. If we don't have an account for them, whether they had been filing their Schedule F Schedule E for rental income, we can send them a nice letter and say, hey, what's really helpful is in communities, the council or the finance people, whatever, they may know of people that own rental property in the area. So if you know that, say, John Smith's got rental property on, 3rd Street, whatever, just send me the name of the rental owner, maybe his address or whatever. I don't necessarily need a social. We can then send them a letter and say, congratulations, you need the award, or you're a semi-final in the lottery for whatever. And, by the way, your tax ordinance, I apologize, I didn't check Nelsonville's tax ordinance to see if you have a clause like that in your tax ordinance, but if that's something that you would desire to have, it's easily just update your tax ordinance to include that in there. But we can try to generate communication with property owners as well as renters, again, to try to identify everybody that owes taxes on that.
I'm gonna never rent you out, Corey. So
I don't know what he's talking about. Okay, that's just a note there. Another question? Mr. Whiskey, you jump in
So,
anywhere.
I feel like, I'm just along the right. So say we brought you guys on next year, do taxes, does this whole process work just on everything going forward, or does it look back to years past?
So, past years, say we targeted, typically we like to start at 1/1 of 23, the first of the year. The other option maybe mid-year, just to help the taxpayers if they have to do an estimate for whatever reason. But, once we did the conversion and we're officially your tax administrator for the city, all prior returns we're responsible for, okay? Somebody may call in, usually we transfer information going back 3 years, because typically once a return is filed, you have 3 years to collect on it, okay? If it's an older return than that, the statute limitations runs in on that. Sometimes we'll get a call or an email that say, I want to file, or I made a payment on such and such a return. We may not have records of that, so we would call the municipality and say, can you check your prior system or, whatever, to see, was there really a payment of that nature there? If so, then we can add that as a payment into our system or whatever. Yeah, but it's all prior years. And we send out a welcome letter, we call it a welcome letter, I don't know how welcome it is, but about a month before the actual conversion effective date, to all the residents and businesses in the municipality, just to say, city of Nelsonville has decided to utilize RETA, and here's our address, here's our phone numbers, whatever. It's signed by our executive director. It can also be signed by a member or up to 2 signatures on Nelsonville, your mayor, and maybe your auditor might want to have a signature on there as well. We encourage that because when these letters go out, those are names that the community will be familiar with. It's just not a spam letter going out there from some Yahoo company that says, hey, send me your tax return with your social on it. And by the way, a check, whatever. So, but this way, if it has, a mayor and, an auditor, whatever, signatures on the bottom, it lends a tremendous degree of credibility to the letter on that.
So how does this is probably more for Taylor, how's our current enforcement process compared to what's being proposed for non-filers?
Great question. So our system is very old, and there's no dedicated income tax person as far as somebody who spends full time getting training, going to conference, traveling the state, learning to be better, and then doing the job of enforcing. And so I compare income tax to a paper version of like code enforcement. You have to follow up, you have to follow up, you have to follow up, you have to track them, you have to go after. And in many cases in Nelsonville, and I said this a year ago, and I still say this, in many cases in Nelsonville, it's a pure, it's not folks just trying to dodge Johnny Law. It's folks who have just done something a certain way for 20 years and just haven't checked in with City Hall. They may even be running cash business, right? But they're going to file with the IRS almost certainly because it's hard to get around the IRS, something I can't get to. So currently we do a reminder postcard, several $1,000s for the postage and printing of a reminder postcard. So we follow up at the beginning. We input income taxes. We handle problems as they come in. So if Tara or myself or somebody notices, this return, well, I'll give an easy example. This return says they owe $600, but there's no check in the envelope, so there's no payment. That's an easy, quick fire to put out, right? You need to write a letter and call that taxpayer. You always got to write it, right? Because it's taxes, you got to have writing. Contact that taxpayer. Hey, I need, or you owe $600. What's the situation? We didn't get a payment with the return. So I don't want to bore you with like the full process, but what I want to say is that imagine that that's happening with not just 2,200, or excuse me, 2,500 or so residential tax filers, but a ton of business filings, not just for in Nelsonville, but anybody who may have done business in Nelsonville for 10 days, 7 days, 15 days, every contractor, AT&T, giant companies. Imagine everybody, right, is sending a filing. And so I guess what I'm getting at is it quickly becomes a capacity issue. It quickly becomes a question of, can we just get the data into the system so that when they call, we can handle their question, which is its own kind of like, Scott's seen it before. It's its own Herculean effort of paperwork heroism. And it's not even me, I'm putting it on Tara. She's the one who's helped made it happen for the last year, exactly 1 year. And yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is you can see where it gets very thick and complicated very quick, right? If you've got 100 follow-ups, well, you can get those follow-ups easy enough out as they come, but do we have somebody dedicated to tracking them, sifting out the people who might actually be evaders that we really gotta track and go after, and constantly be applying fees at a regular schedule and communications at a regular schedule? And I'm sure I'm like preaching the choir here. You've got to actually follow the state code or you don't have a case against them, which is what you're building to if they're really evading. And in my time here, we haven't taken anyone to court because one, not only do you have to have a very strong case, and they know that, right? That's why they're still evading. But two, it becomes a cost issue. So we'll be billed hourly by our city attorney. So we better owe a pretty good amount by the time we take them to court, or try some sort of civil penalty or something, if that makes sense.
So to answer your question briefly, no, we don't have one in place now. It's a capacity issue.
Is there ever an amount that's
It's there.
too small for you guys to go after in collections?
Usually they look at about $250 for a balance. I don't know, based on research I've done or something. Anything lower than that, it gets into a cost estimate of burning resources against what you could possibly obtain from that. So if it's more than 250 and they hadn't done any activity, we do them quarterly. So if 2 quarters go by, they threw the bill away or whatever, then it goes to our collections department and they can contact them via phone, another letter, whatever. And then it's up to the collection agent to determine, is this person really dodging because, I've left a couple of voicemail messages and I've got no callbacks or, whatever. Then they can bring the attorneys in and go forward with that. I mean, about 250 is the benchmark.
Now, when you say collections, we still hold the debt on that when it goes to the collections part of it. It's not like a traditional collections agency that would buy the debt and try to collect that.
No,
Okay.
no, yeah, it's still. Now, if we actually get a judgment in court, then we use a third-party collection agency / attorney, and they're the pit bull people. They call them up and they do the threatening, they do the garnishment of wages, the filing the liens and on that. And typically they charge 18%, but that's tacked on to, whatever the balance amount is. So when the taxpayer pays, the 18% goes to that third party, the rest of it comes into it eventually gets allocated to the municipality involved.
How long does it take to implement your program when you?
Usually it's about 4 to 5 months, depending upon the state of the records and the amount. Obviously, to convert a Youngstown was it's probably 6-7 months to do that one. On this, looking at Nelsonville, we feel that if we could start like September 1 with a conversion, we can use an effective date of 1/1 of 2023 on that. Because it takes a little bit of a ramp up. We have to get this resources on our end as well. There's usually 3 extracts from your existing system. First one we get, we just look at the records to make sure that accounts have the information. There's a social security number on there, a name, an address, and whatever. So from the first extract, it spits out a bunch of information that back to say, okay, we need to contact these taxpayers, or maybe you have records that can add this information in because it's something that we need. The second extract, which is usually about a month or so after that, that's when we actually build the database in our system. And those are the records we use, them names, addresses to spew out the welcome letters on that. And then once the end of the year comes and your system closes for December, that's usually like mid-January's timeframe. Then we'll do another extract just to bring in all there may have been some payments that were added in late December, whatever that timeframe. So after the third extract is in, that's usually about mid-January. Then the cord's cut, if you will, and then we're up and running on our system and ready to go.
How long does it, how long is it before you usually catch up with either a new resident in the community or a new business that starts up, like that process for you guys? Like, how do you become aware of that? Someone just moves to Nelsonville, so lives here, maybe doesn't work here, but lives here now, or decides to start a new business in Nelsonville.
Do you handle the water sewer registrations? Okay, we heavily rely upon it because when people move in or they move out, they have to come in and do something with their water sewer account. Okay, so while they're across the desk saying, hey, I'm new in Nelsonville, and here's my name, address, we slide them a registration form. It's basically name, address, social security number, whatever, and where did you live before, and what's the effective date that you moved into Nelsonville. Then, that person or, Taylor or whoever just backs that form to me, and I'll send it over to our records management, no bill the account, or a little, close the account out if somebody moved it out effective a certain date. Yeah, so that's probably the number one resource we have there.
So we have some landlords that retain the water bills, in their names. So in an instance like that, that's where you need that tenant form, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
From the landlord, so.
Yeah, those are ones where, yeah, the renter's not gonna come in to sever that, whatever, so we have to rely upon the renter owner or whatever to supply us with, Jane Smith moved out on this date and, John Doe moved in and, whatever, so that we can keep our database current on that. But, those are tough things really to do, on that, so, I mean, we try our best to have programs in place where we can try to find the people and, whatever. But as you know, there's probably people that they make a skill out of staying below the radar or whatever, so we try to keep moving that radar down and down.
One of the things that Rita will be able to do is, and I call out Scott again because he's seen it, but each year we receive a banker's box worth of W-2s because businesses are required to report every W-2 for any Nelsonville, any resident or anybody who paid Nelsonville city income tax, or anybody who lived in the city of Nelsonville and did or did not pay the tax. And then what ends up happening is the business is not going to pay employees to sit and sift through their W-2s if the system doesn't do it for them. So sometimes we get business W-2s that are this thick, but there's 18 in there that we really need to find. Under state law, you're not required to process those W-2s. They're as an added benefit. It is another huge paper process haul that I can't imagine ever getting to without full-time income tax dedication, where Rita is going to have a system, it sounds like, much like the IRS, where whether they get paper or submitted online, they've got a process to get that processed. And they're going to know what online or on paper, they're going to know this person lived in Nelsonville, worked in Lancaster at Jiffy Lube or something, and made $20,000 and owes this much to the city. Whereas we would have to pay somebody to go and do that, and then have a system functional enough to do something like that. So I guess what I'm getting at is I personally think, and I usually don't speak like this, I personally think Al's estimates, including last year's, are conservative, because just by following up on those problems as they come in, and reminding people, actually, wait, you do owe us here, as those forms come in, income tax collection in the city has gone from 1.48 million, which I think is what your first estimate was based on last year, in 2019, those were 2019 tax numbers, were over 1.7 and a half. Now some of that's inflation and other things, but we all live here. Wages aren't going up that quickly here. People aren't getting 30% raises, right? So I personally believe, having talked to the fiscal officer of Middleport, Belpre, and Wellston, that I believe their experiences, which were very positive, and Middleport specifically cited a 13% increase. We're not Middleport, but I just personally believe Al's being a little modest. They're gonna have the capacity to go after the cases that owe us money, quite frankly.
And those W-2s, we actually, it's a legal requirement that if you have a business have more than 250 W-2s, we'll only take that electronically. So we don't have to scan in 2, 3, 4,000 W-2s or whatever. So that, again, the whole concept of using computers to the max and heavily updating our system to do more and more and more.
So say we're completely satisfied or dissatisfied, pardon me, for whatever, however it goes, it flops, it doesn't work out well for us. Is there a contract term for this?
We require 6 months before you actually want to cut the cord or whatever. Yeah, that's all it is. Just so we can get, prepared, at the effective date of the termination, we will send you a file and say, here's all the records we have. If you're going to ABC company, software company, they can maybe design an interface program to load it into their system, whatever. So, it's not like we're gonna find, there's no termination fee or anything like that. We try to do our best to make our members happy, but we understand in that case where we decide it's more beneficial to do it yourself.
How often does that happen?
In the, Rita's been up and running for 30 years. We had one company that did that. That actually went to a different company. That was about 3 years ago. Riverside, it's outside of Dayton. I don't know if you know, but the competing company, if you will, did a nice job on them, I guess. And it was funny because they were heavily relying upon, I mentioned the community city of Hamilton, which is north of Cincinnati. The company that they went to is called CCA, which is the city of Cleveland. And they were heavily using saying, hey, we handle the city of Hamilton, big, massive company. They're on CCA, they're just down the road. We got all kinds of support for you, whatever. And just this past year, CCA came on board to Rita. So it popped the pin in their balloon or something. But anyway, we've had ones that have left mainly to do their own taxes. Many of those have come back. They said, well, we realized that we had a key person in place, they retired, or maybe something happened, and it's gonna take a mountain of expenses to bring a new person on board, to get them up to speed. Well, they have a skill mentioned, the training, the interfacing with different sessions or conferences to get their knowledge level up to speed. It's to me, it looks like it'd be far more than $50,000 or whatever. But that economy of scale is why we can do that. I kept the same number that we had as a cost. I think the first one was like, you said 1.4 something million.
Mhm.
And even though the number went up to 1.7, Rita's total collection amount also went up. So the percentage of our cost stayed about the same. Okay. So that's one of the advantages. As we bring more and more communities on board, the collections amount keeps going up. So, even if your collections go up a little bit, you may actually end up paying less money on it because the percentage of turns out is lower than it had been. But sometimes it's the other way around. The collections go up, and then there's a few more nickels on there. But so at least this is the way we do it. We do it for all the municipalities the same way. So I know that CCA company, as I mentioned, they're city of Cleveland. They charge whatever they want to charge. It's, we're down $50,000, so we're going to tell that community, you got to pay another $50,000 just because or whatever. But, and we send out a letter every year that here's our total expense that Rita incurred. Here's how much collections we did. Here's how much collections we did for your municipality. Here's the percentages. Here's how we compute the number. Here's what that retainer fee was throughout the year. And in some cases, there's a refund on that. Actually, out of the 300 and some, I think there was only about maybe 50 or 60 actually had to pay a little bit more because the 3% was a little bit on the low side. And there are typically ones that are very, very small, under 1,000 people, whatever. The larger ones, they got $50,000, $60,000 worth of refunds coming. That overage, if you will, we just don't have that money sitting in the bank. We're actually investing in extremely secure securities, probably bonds and CD. Well, CDs don't make very much money anyway, but we're utilizing that money. So any interest that we gain off of those funds that are just sitting there or whatever, those are all applied to Rita's total cost. So, but the more money we can have in there, the better we can utilize and gain some additional funds. It keeps our costs down. And this is the best interest to our executive director when he goes in front of the board, once a year and said, here's what we did. And if you look at the chart, I think over the last 4 or 5 years, every year the percent of collections has been going down. This past year's at 1.3. We look at all the municipalities in general. That percent of collections is kind of a misleading number because if your collections are low, even though you have a high percent, it's not very much money. But if your collections are real high, if you have a real low percent, it's still a lot of money. So it's however you want it.
So I think you answered my question here, that, so we say we sign on with you guys, then we become a part owner in your organization. We get an annual report then, basically, stating how well you did, the previous year. I'm assuming with your software as well, then Taylor does, auditor reports for us, during some of our meetings throughout the year. So if he wanted to do a quarterly income tax update, there's like reports and stuff that he could, provide data from and say, okay, we've got X amount of collections and that kind of stuff, I'm assuming.
Yes. And with these deposits we make twice a month, we send you a report that shows you, here's, it's the days we actually had a collection for it. So if you look at the chart, all 30 or 31 days may not be represented, but it shows all the days we got a collection, what the total amount was, whatever, the refunds that we had to pay out for your municipality, penalty and interest that we actually got payments for on there. That's all spelled out on that. Taylor would have the ability to actually go into the system to generate a report. Maybe he needs one 5 days after the one he just got, but he wants to know what happened in those 5 days. He can go in and generate a report and add those numbers to it or whatever,
I think you answered my question there. Refunds to the customers come directly from you guys?
Yes. As long as we got the money, I should say.
Right,
Everybody-
right, yeah, refund's already been paid, yes.
In some cases, there could be a withholding company from their employer. We have proof that we never got the withholding amount. So we say, you have to go to your employer because they have the money there. Well, the employer's saying they don't have the money. They sent it to you guys. Well, we never got it.
Check.
Had to send us a form
Yeah,
and
that's
a
right.
cancel check.
We have more than one example of that. in the
Oh,
past.
really? Yeah.
This is both are still projects, so
Mhm.
this is still something to be worked on, yeah.
It's life interesting.
I think you answered all my questions. Greg, do you have any questions?
I would, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I would suggest if council's interested, obviously, I'm interested and have been so. I don't want to speak for the city manager, but I believe he is as well. And going to Rita.
I just have one question.
Oh.
Any issues with people sitting on their couch in Nelsonville and working for an employer in Europe?
If the money is earned in Europe, then that would be an issue. But if they're working, if you will, out of their home in Nelsonville, the money they received, even though it's coming from Europe or whoever, that's taxable in Nelsonville because the workplace would be classified as Nelsonville, not Spain or whatever.
You'll catch it.
Yeah, if they file a federal return, or state return, eventually we'll latch on to them. How come you didn't file whatever?
Got it.
And they should have gotten a W-2 from, whatever. And that whole process comes into play to try and track it down.
Cool.
Whatever side hustle you got going on, let's just leave it at that. Okay?
Hey, man,
I was gonna say,
it'll be on Facebook soon enough. It's famous.
Well, it's just like any of those other employees that have people working from home, so if they don't live in the city of Nelsonville, you can't collect the city income tax off of them because they're working from home, like in Athens County, even though the company's based out of Nelsonville.
I was more curious about overseas stuff, because I mean, even our treasurer there for a while was working for way out of state there, and I know some other folks that work globally from here in town, so I just wasn't sure about.
Oh, my pay grade on that global shit.
They have to look at where they're physically located when they're working. As you mentioned, they may be in a township right outside, but the business is in Nelsonville. In that case, their income is taxed to the township with their zero. But, and they're not a resident of Nelsonville, so
Right.
they wouldn't.
So they
be
couldn't
taxed
pay,
on it.
yeah.
That's correct.
I was just gonna add that if it's something the finance committee and eventually council is interested in, then it would be my suggestion to not shoot for a January 1st start date. Because seeing as it's the biggest change to income taxes in Nelsonville since the increase in 2012 or 13, I just wouldn't want to create a rush process where council's rushing to pass it. And then we're actually also upgrading our utility software, and it will be budget season for Scott and I. So to me, it just seems like maybe shoot for a timeline that is maybe just past tax day or
Why not?
something
Yeah.
like
Let's
that.
do it. It's crazy.
Well, I'm all for crazy, but I also, this is a big change, and if we're gonna put our stamp on it, and if I'm gonna put my stamp on it, which I want to do, I want it to be successful and right.
So let's talk about that change for your office. What does that mean for your office if we adopt something like this?
I don't understand.
Your office.
Yeah.
Not his office, your office.
No, right, but I don't understand the question.
Well, so if we adopt a program like Rita, that's gonna impact your office. So how does that change, the dynamics where, how you operate from day to day now? I mean, are we saving time and energy on certain things, and does that enable us to do more, something different or more of something else that we need to focus on, or so how does this change your office?
No, I think so. So an example of income tax in my office is I open the mail and process and stamp and review every tax form that comes in. So it would certainly free up some time for me in the morning.
And that's particularly in tax season though, right? Not throughout the year necessarily?
It's the whole year.
Really?
So we get about 80 to 85% of our income tax collections from withholdings. And those are due every 30 days. So for example, I want to say Friday, I processed about $20,000 in tax returns that aren't final returns, they're withholding returns. And then tax season, of course, is that on steroids. So currently, I have a staff member input the data once I'm done with it. And then we review the data, to make the decisions we need to make. So the biggest change to me will be those two things, freeing them up for something else. Lord knows there is enough of a backlog on a million things for us to work on. And it would be a better use of time too, because I don't want to sound, above my pay grade, which isn't that high anyway, right? But it's not a good use of time for elected administrator to be processing just pure paperwork, which at any other administration building in the state, you'd have somebody, an administrative worker, working on this. So we would be getting better use of my time in particular. We would save money on the software that we pay for every year. And we would save money on the notices to taxpayers, which would certainly be, at a minimum, the reminder is several $1,000s, but then the follow-up afterwards too. So, I mean, if you were to tell me something like you were changing the way utility billing or accounts payable was being changed, it would be a major overhaul of my office, I would think. Income taxes, we have gotten down to a system where if somebody has free time, we can get it from check to bank and then data to, paper to data. And it would save us some time on some of those tasks for sure.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
So on our side, his people getting freed up is going to be a really big impact as well.
Because you're gonna monopolize his.
Yes.
Yes, okay. All right. I like this.
Yes.
Leave some streets, baby.
So his folks take the lion's share of calls for service for the service department. And we're in the process, by Christmas time, we will have fully automated work order system. And all the calls that come in now, they're kind of all over the place as far as who gets those calls. But once the work order system is in place, because if I'm out, since we don't have a designated person right now, which I don't know when the right time to talk about that is, but there's nobody to answer the phone. Right now we have a HAPCAP person answering the phone, and they're doing phenomenal. Best one we've had. And but where he's from? HAPCAP, yes.
That's what I was gonna ask you about, I keep forgetting.
Yeah, if we can make him full-time, that'd be great. But that's a different subject.
I think you found the best time to bring it up. There you go.
If we can make that happen, that'd be great. But anyways, right now, especially when the code position's been vacant, his office has been taking all the calls for service. And in addition to all the other stuff that they've got going on. And by doing that, they've just been making it happen however they can, text messages, emails to Jason and his crew, and stuff's been slipping through the cracks. I mean, it's been failing and it's not their fault. It's just, they got their own stuff going on. And it's just by all the different means of communication, we don't have a good work order system. It's just been happening. A lot of stuff getting done. Nothing has majorly failed yet. We've just been making it happen. And the stuff does fall through the cracks. We get it. We pick it up and we fix it. And that, by them having that extra time, that calls for service, we'll be able to streamline that and pick that up. Because even if somebody does end up over here answering the phone, that they're still gonna get a lot of those calls no matter what. So taking the weekly workload off, like he said, would you say 15, 20 minutes? Whatever it is, your weekly or your monthly task that you have to do when you receive the checks.
Oh, well, no, we can spend, it's when I'm sitting in Judy's office processing income tax paperwork, it can be over an hour.
I'm not, I'm in and out of there, bouncing out. I don't know. See, whatever, would you say?
Hour a week or hour a month, you think?
Probably a week,
Oh,
a couple hours maybe.
like almost every single day.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
We get a ton of tax mail. I'll just, it should be part of this meeting to go walk you through the boxes of tax.
It's a lot.
documents. The
And I don't-
paperwork is absurd. It's absurd.
But the big relief is going to be during tax season because that's a surge
Right.
in one part of time. You know, that snapshot of time is a surge. It's a surge on him, but it's also a surge on Tara. And the big relief is going to be on Tara as well as Taylor's. But that relief on her, they will be able to get a lot more of their processes ironed out. They've got a lot of them ironed out now. But if the customer service help with the meters and the water, they're already getting a lot better now. Things are starting to smooth out with the helping out the customers, explaining with the leaks. I guess what I'm trying to say is the customer experience is continuously getting better, and allowing that time, I think it'll just continue to smooth out. Plus the paper records that they have now, we need to digitize that stuff and become part of our risk that we're taking identified by our insurance. So we're almost fully cloud-based now. Well, that's operational, great. Well, we need to get all of our historic stuff cloud-based too. So part of that, after we get all caught up, our folks are gonna have to start making some of that cloud-based and, or getting it electronic, I guess is the best way of saying it. So we have tasks that we need to get caught up on and make it electronic, and that's gonna take years to get all that done, unless we pay a company a lot of money, which we need to actually probably do a combination of both. Our folks with the company doing both of those, but we have a lot of tasks that are so far behind that it's gonna be a while playing catch up to get it all. I guess is probably the best way of saying it.
Taylor, about the Eco software, do we have a contract on that? Or would we be able to get out of that?
No, we'd be able to cancel that.
Be able to, okay.
Mhm.
So it's kind of a month-to-month thing. probably.
Yeah, I hadn't considered the question of what, if they would prorate the fee back, but we pay the fee all at once at the beginning of the year. But SSI it's SSI, it's the VIP system. They own the VIP system. We're bringing everything on board to.
Okay.
Which income tax is the only functionality they won't put on there because they say, well, no offense, they say because of two things, the state legislature and RETA, it's not worth it, because most of all their customers are going to RETA. So moral of the story is,
They'd be happy to see it. go.
yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. They'd be happy to give us whatever credit we want, as long as we stay a customer with a VIP. I was gonna say one more thing. I forgot it. I'll come back to it.
Might be up and up, so don't look at it. I think you answered all my questions.
Okay, well, as I mentioned, you have my card there, and any questions come up, shoot me an email, phone call, I typically don't answer my phone after midnight, so if you call 1 in the morning and get voicemail,
Good to know.
or I'll return your call real quick. No. To wake you up, no. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Al.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I have two things, and both of them are very easy. I don't know if TSAP has anything or not.
A few things. Quick.
Mine are we good on the resource officer for me to schedule the special meeting and adjust the staffing ordinance? I'll put his salary, I don't remember what they said it was, but he's gonna be non-union, so it's gonna be a year-to-year contract. And it's gonna be basically his.
We're getting reimbursed from the school anyhow.
Right, it's all gonna be based off the school.
So yeah, we'll have no cost in his.
I'm good for that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's easy. McDonald's got back to me. So when we started the conversation, it was actually clear back in almost the beginning of June. So they came back and they asked if, since we're basically at the end of the season, fair enough, by the time they ordered the sign, if that could be next year and the year after for the $800. So I just,
Do we ever figure out what a sponsorship board was?
well, that's what you asked Mr. Porter and you said it's about 500.
About 500, yeah.
So, and that's a year.
500, I could get shopping.
Oh, boy.
I'm sure plenty of kids want to have you build a place.
Right? You know, money's money.
We're gonna get a Sherman Happy Meal.
Oh, my. On that note, so $800 covers the cost of those speakers that we want people. I'm okay with that. I really don't have an issue. McDonald's does a lot for kids. They buy passes and stuff like that during the summer.
They do, they buy a lot
Oh,
of
yeah.
passes and,
And maybe we'll make it a person.
So, but it
More
would it
businesses want to sign
be,
up.
would it be 500 after that then for them? Would it only be 800 for this year and next year, and then the ongoing years, is it gonna be 500 after that?
no, it'd be $800 for
2 years, right?
23 and 24.
So,
Oh, 23, 24.
So it'd be
okay.
400 for each, or, you know, it'd be,
Not this year then.
So then
but next
25
year.
we can-
yeah, because by the time they got it made
Yeah,
this year, the pool season's over. It wouldn't even be out for this year.
I mean, at that point, we can offer it to other businesses around town if we wanted to do
Yeah.
that as well.
Yeah, so we could just say 400 a year for something that size and
At least, so or you could say $500 a year,
Or
or 400 if you do 2 years or more in advance.
I like that.
okay. So then if we have the ordinance drawn up, then we can have the ordinance drawn up generically.
Write that check, Dano.
Right, it's, and then make it all standard, what was
See,
it?
what can I
3
do?
by 5 sign or 5 by 8 or something like that?
Let me look.
No, there's a 5 in there,
Oh,
so
shoot, I just had it.
I think it's 5 by 8, so
How about it?
that seems huge.
No, it was, I thought it was 3. Did you say 3 by 5?
8 by 10.
Oh, that's too big.
Oh,
Oh, my
that's okay.
God.
Monster.
That's huge.
Like a paper, 8 by 10,
Yeah.
about, you know, piece of paper?
Yeah.
Are you talking about like this big?
Well, let's go back with size then. I mean, if we wanted to do that for the 2 full years, I mean, we can go back. So
I'm just saying, according to some size, doesn't matter.
a 5 by 8 is a reasonable
I've always
size.
said that.
A 5 by, I mean, but you're thinking,
4 by cheap.
but what you're really looking at is a big piece of white with just the arches and it says McDonald's.
So who supplies the
What-
sign?
They do.
They do.
What's that gonna be attached to?
The chain link fence, we can either put it along the
Okay,
outspace.
so 5 by 8 catching the wind,
Well, we already have that stuff there anyways, and typically I'm gonna assume that they're gonna supply the ones that already have the little half mushrooms cut, or the half circles cut in them. If not, we'll have to cut those.
So
out.
here's an idea. So I have, for my fences, I've got, it's printed on like a mesh.
We have mesh on those fences
You
already.
know what I'm talking about, but mine's printed on a mesh, so the wind does go
Oh.
through it. And you know, you can see it plain, so it's not like it's. I think that would be the better way to go, because it's not a wind catcher at that point.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, you know, that's not a bad idea.
It's
Yeah.
good enough that the sign's up, it's gonna change the way the wind blows through there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, that could be just one big wind catch thing.
Yeah.
At least with the green stuff, it does go through.
Right.
It's just, you know, when you get a solid sheet of there, it's gonna.
Yeah, I'll just cover to make sure it has the, it's perforated, whether it's the half circles or the mesh. to allow the wind to go through, so it's not a sail.
And just whatever we use, just make that uniform for anyone else who wants to
Right.
sponsorship.
Yeah, because I already have.
Yeah, so
Here's a suggestion for your size problem.
So that would be the size of our fence. So our fence is 8 foot tall, so it would be the total height of our fence and 10 foot long. So it'd be one panel of our fencing.
I see.
It's a big sign.
Don't we have a sign ordinance for the city? Like if somebody wants to put a sign up for a business,
nobody else wants to follow that though, so I mean,
well.
We've been making people follow sign
oh,
ordinances.
okay. I'm just saying,
But if it's inside the pool, is that,
I don't know. That's
it's
why I'm asking.
sponsorship at that point, it's not
Yeah, it's not really
necessarily,
a sign, it's more or less inside.
that's a good question though,
It's
I
not on
would
the street sign.
maybe run that by
Planning and development.
planning development.
I'm thinking judiciary.
I'm thinking inside the pool. I mean, it's like asking.
That's like putting your.
Yeah, but the question is gonna come up when the first sign goes up and then somebody else wants to put one up. It'll come up about the sign ordinance.
We can talk about it tomorrow night. We got that.
Yeah, we got tomorrow night.
There you
Yeah.
go, planning and development, I pushed that over to planning and development, that's what I recommend.
Alrighty.
I still think it's judiciary, but okay.
After you violate the sign ordinance, then
Then
it's.
it goes to
Alright. But as far as the money goes, finance doesn't have a problem with the,
2 year thing.
So that would get, wherever that money go, what fund? Like-
I put it in the aquatics fund,
Pool
because that,
repairs
yeah,
and
for
stuff
pool
like that.
repairs and
Yeah.
stuff, yeah. And upgrades and,
yeah,
yeah,
Yeah, that's the way of fixing the pool.
that's what I would do.
Good.
and,
I'm gonna knock on some doors, get some more sponsorship.
Yeah. so we do have another leak, just since we're talking about, but I got money in there. I'm gonna bring them back down, leak seekers. It's not near as bad as it was. But, I'm gonna have them come back down once we shut down for school, and have them do their inspection while the kids are in school. We're gonna shut down Labor Day weekend is gonna be our last kid day. And then the weekend after that, we'll have our dog swim, and then we'll,
It stops raining.
yeah, and then we're done after that, you know, depending on, unless they need to extend it filled to do a repair for some reason. But, we'll drain it shortly after that, repair pending, but yeah, the leak now is not near what it was. So,
I have a question on
Yeah.
your staffing ordinance for the police department. Is code gonna fall under the police department then?
I don't see any reason to move it yet.
Okay.
They are just training and so she's working directly with them now, but, we can talk about that for the first of the year when we do the staffing ordinance again, if we officially want to move her.
Right.
But right now, I don't see a need to officially move her yet, but, they are working. They've taken the lion's share of training her, which is great, because I took her out the first day and we went driving around. But as far as teaching her the very basics of code is good, but I'm gonna have to pull her toward the end of next week out of code mode and send her over to Jason. And Jason's gonna have her go do prevailing wage inspections, because that falls under her as well. And then I gotta get her started on some ODOT training. So, she's gotta complete some ODOT inspector training, which will save the city roughly $100,000 when we do the ODOT project, for the streets down through here. So if she performs those inspections, that saves us 6 figures right there. So, that'll be, a huge savings. Now, it doesn't have to be, the training's gonna take her a while, but she just needs to get started on it. And, you know, it's all online training, to my understanding, so, but she'll just plug along at it. So even though right now, a lot of everything she's doing is falling under PD, it's not a full hat underneath there. They're just helping her get, right now she's, you know, she's chasing grass and trash cans right now, which is very, very helpful. And, because Lord knows we need that right now. And, some other, complaints, she's addressing complaints that are, you know, outside the grass and that stuff. But
He's parked on.
yes, there's definitely a fifth wheel down on Poplar Street on an unapproved surface, right where 2 houses used to be.
Generator sitting there now.
Oh my goodness.
Slide out, slide out.
You know, I used to be a city employee. They think they know as much as they complain about me.
All right, well, you burned up all your time, so.
What's that? What you got?
Yeah, you have one.
Is that Poplar Street you're talking about?
That's where the, yeah, between Poplar and Walnut.
I saw it yesterday.
Yeah, real
For the
shame.
first time.
I've been doing
Yeah, well, never mind, I have a joke for it later. You guys are gonna see in September, we have to pass our routine yearly ordinance. It's called the accepting amounts and rates of our property tax levies from the county auditor. Just didn't want you to be surprised. You just have to always accept whatever the county auditor says they think we're gonna collect. And so you'll see that. I have some life, dental, and vision insurance renewals. I believe these are on 2 or 3 year schedules, because some of them I haven't seen before. And I've been here almost 3 years now. I cannot find what they did last time with it. So I was just thinking to just bring you some like approval or an ordinance to request approval to renew those. None of our rates changed, so pretty good on all three. The life is required by contract. The vision and dental is also something the city covers. By far and away our smallest insurance cost versus health. Any questions on either one of those? Thoughts, problems? Okay. I'm going to bring forward with your approval of unclaimed funds appropriation ordinance. If you remember, you set up an unclaimed funds process like a year ago, maybe less. And we just have to actually physically move the funds now before we get to the end of the year to the unclaimed fund. And it's just $1,516.52 right now. Not a much, not a lot. And so unless there's any objections, you'll see that.
After we move that to that, do we have to publish?
They're already published. Yeah. I can tell you I've received no request on any unclaimed funds. Not even a phone call. So to be fair, but it's like 30 checks adding up to 1,500, so it's not big checks, but I still.
Are there names on those checks? Do you know who to go to?
Yeah.
Never mind.
Oh, we got it down. We got it down. We got copies of them.
Your mouth's very unprofessional, sir. I know all about professionalism.
I know I'm going through stuff quick. The federal government now requires the city and all people to pass what's called a federal procurement policy before they're allowed. I saw a chuckle over there.
Not a chuckle, sir. I just got a sore belly.
Yeah, it was a chuckle. A federal procurement policy before we're allowed to spend our new ARPA money. So we received the ARPA money about 15 days ago, 16 days ago. I
spend that.
I hadn't even mentioned to Mr. Frank that we received it.
I knew that.
I think the employment cost to generate that policy is gonna be more than what we're actually receiving.
Well, to be fair, we're just gonna copy and paste policy, right? But
Like,
I just want you to know there's gonna be like a 30-page recommended policy the feds gave, because we're not allowed to spend. It's actually not a bad amount of money. It's like what, $275?
Same as last year.
that Susan have to read the entire policy into the minutes.
No, we're gonna exhibit it that.
Poor
If
Susan.
the attorney doesn't, then you all need to talk with him. So, so you'll see that because I'm sure Scott wants to spend ARPA funds.
Lots of them.
Mm-hmm.
No.
There's a list.
You'll see some legislation about us bringing the Betty Johnson Trust funds onto the city's books. I want it to be really clear. It's not appropriating it and it can't be spent yet, but
accepting.
we're going to bring it on. Yep. We're going to bring it on the books. We're going to create a fund.
Why can't we spend it?
We're not to
One
that
thing at a
step yet.
time.
We're not to that step yet.
Is that a Taylorism?
It's
Is that a Bobism?
it's a process.
Well, it's a mix of both. It's call me. But it's actually got to be our money. We've got to accept it. We've got to say it's ours. We've got to include it in the audit. All of these things have not happened. And we're now past the 30 days. There's been no appeal.
So now we can appropriate it.
Well,
Almost.
Accept. Yeah.
We got to accept it
But
and later
there's
discuss
some
what we're going to do
blame.
with it.
Yeah.
With
Memory
too
of
much fanfare.
Johnson.
I like Taylor's idea though about putting just making sure that Betty's name gets to be on whatever project.
So if we buy a dozer, we can name the blade.
Everything
No.
that thing pays for should have a plaque on
So
it.
Absolutely.
we buy our new chiefs plows for their trucks.
That's why I said no offense to Bob. I was like, legal bills? No, I'll fight you on that one. The last thing just was with Al Dolezal's presentation on Rita. If the committee had any thoughts, wanted to sleep on it, wanted me to bring it forward to the next one, not council meeting, but next finance, or how did you, I'm not asking you to rush, I just want you to know that, but I wanted to know what the committee's thought process was.
Myself, face value, yes, I'm positive about it. I do want to research it more. We probably should discuss it further next finance meeting, just to make sure we're moving in the right direction.
I missed the last time he was here, so, this is the first, time I've had to really go through it and ask questions. So, I mean, I'm pretty positive about it. I mean, I like a lot of what I heard. I, as a landowner, would not feel comfortable about giving my tenants information to somebody. I don't have any problem if they want to go door to door and not, and say, hey, we need to gather this information. I just don't personally feel comfortable about sharing that personal information with them. I mean, it's like, hey, here's my tenant's social security numbers. And,
Well, the way you talk, you don't even have to have social security number, not just name and address.
no, name and address, yeah. So, but I'd be more than happy to assist in that process if I need to give them a notice saying, hey, somebody may contact you regarding this and it's legitimate.
And you guys have local control on that. The city of Athens requires their landlords to submit to their tax department, tenant list. I was trying to pull up electronically the income tax section, which unfortunately I couldn't get to come up because we currently don't require people effectively, like in reality, but I don't know what the code
We
says.
should.
Actually, though, to be honest, this is gonna negatively impact some of our landlords as well, because I know that this is currently not being enforced per se by code, but I know that we have some landlords with more than 3 non-related individuals living in a house that's in an R1 zoned area.
Here's the thing, they're probably charging them per bedroom.
And they're probably charging per bedroom. And so, the reality is that does violate, some of those codes that we have now. So,
Put a lock on them and push them out. Good land.
well, I mean, I just think that, you rent by the unit, in my opinion. You don't rent per bedroom. You don't, it should be families or,
We went through that in 2004 and 5 with the city attorney. It took 2 years to get a definition of a family unit. It was a nightmare.
But I don't think tax records are gonna be accessible to the code officer.
No,
No. Tax records aren't, but I'm just saying that when
when you have a landlord have to give you a list of tenants, then for tax purposes. And just basically all you need is their name and the address.
But I guess what I'm saying is if they're providing them directly to Rita, they would never even come through the city.
Well, they fill a form out with the city.
Well, but our auditor is gonna have access to, the record that of those individuals living in the same, there's 3 unrelated individuals living in the same unit.
But if he gave that to the code person, that would definitely be viewed.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying, like, these may already been complaints. I know people have complained to me about it, whether or not they've ever complained to a code officer about it, I don't know, but
That's positive. Then.
I think it is.
Absolutely.
It would clean up a lot of stuff.
But I'm just stating it's gonna negatively impact some folks that,
That's great. Maybe those people decide to give you a landlord to some other city. Then.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, because I don't like how they operate.
True that, and then some people are getting taken advantage of because of that.
That's absolutely right.
Sounds like another.
And it gives back rats to some that are trying to play by rules. Yeah. We're the ones that always seem to pay the price.
Well,
It does.
This levels playing field a little bit for you there.
I'm gonna give Taylor an address this week of somebody that's playing contractor that's not registered with the city. Doesn't pay city taxes, doesn't pay state taxes, yet wants to be a contractor.
So there was a
Be happy to
program.
get that name.
If only there was a program that
Well,
would
I'll
catch
give you
that.
the name and the address. Or off his application.
There was only a program.
I will
we could
say-
get that would catch that.
Huh?
There was only a program we could get that would catch that.
I will say that the way Al phrased it, I did want to make sure to clarify. He talked about landlords could get caught up in paying on the net profit on their rents and that they're good at enforcing it. And I just want to make sure I clarify, that's actually not a change. That, I mean, being a landlord, you know, you guys know, but I just wanted to say, like, in case the question or social media or somebody takes it off, you
It's not
know,
a tax
it's
increase.
actually the exact same situation. You're always, a business is always going to pay on their net profit. I think he was just more so saying, that with more capacity and enforcement mechanisms, you can make sure they're actually paying what they should pay.
Now, our rental registration listing that we have now, we could feed that directly into them, right?
Yeah, I noticed in his presentation, he included rental registrations as an example of things
Who's
they could pull
enforcing
from.
the vacant registration fees now?
Which, by the way, we printed out the rental registration and vacant rental. I can tell you a lot of people haven't paid their rental registration for the year. And we'll be definitely making lots of friends real soon for 2022 and 2023
It's
due as well, coming due.
Yeah,
So
that's, you know,
more Facebook posts
It's
coming.
business, hey?
It's code, is who's primarily responsible.
Well, I'm
We
sure-
assist with the money collection often.
So whatever it says on
I'm sure
Facebook
we
is
could
going
go
to be
to
true.
office with their
okay.
newly found extra time to kick in to help collection. I'm sure that would be good.
Yes.
We've only collected more money as each year goes by. We collect more than the year before, and I don't want that to go down any. I don't care what they say on CNBC about recession or not. Recession hits, I still want Nelsonville's revenues to go up. Because I know, not to be cheesy, it's reality. Council, city manager, and many others have big ideas for big projects. And to date, correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, but to date, we have not had to say, we just cannot do that because there's no funds. It's not coming in quick enough. We're too poor. We're too broke. It has always been, how can we invest more? How can we get bigger bang for our buck? How can we save more? And I mean, I know one year, some big recession is going to pop our bubble and we'll have to cut back. That's just life. But for right now, I want to make sure we just keep going.
And we're still finding savings everywhere. We're turning money back in every year in different line items. We're not blowing money. So you're right. So we're still finding savings everywhere and we're still turning money back in, and he still hasn't said no to any ideas yet that are good ones.
Well, and I think that, you know, if we can add, I mean, Mr. Flynn and I were talking at the last meeting about, you know, having a street committee meeting and talking about paving projects and I mean, that's, you get an extra $50,000-$60,000. I mean, that's
huge.
Yeah,
that's what I want.
so,
Yes.
you know, that's,
As long as the infrastructure's fixed underneath.
yeah, I mean, I think
It's all
that's
part of the package.
yeah, I mean, that just adds to, you know, our ability to continue to do that. And,
If everybody pays their fair share, we'd become much more able to give better service to people.
yeah, I mean, we're not trying to take advantage of anybody. We're not trying to, be excessive. We just want those that, you know, I know property owners pay a large portion of, you know, the taxes in the community as far as real estate. But that's you know, that's a business they've chosen to have as well. So, you know, that is what it is. So, you know, and property values have been going up. You know, taxes have been going up, which hurts when you write the check, but it is a positive for the city. It means that we're moving in the right direction. So, good thing, I think. So, okay. Yeah, I'm actually, as far as Rita though is concerned, I mean, when do you want to have another finance to talk about it?
Well, I guess I should have asked him if we're not going to do it at the first of the year, what would be, you want to think like after tax time?
Yeah, he hinted at mid-year and one of the things he said, but I know from prior conversations that if a city or village is moving or is transitioning, but doesn't want to, either cannot or does not want to rush the transition, you pick between tax day and mid-year.
Okay.
So you're basically thinking like May 1st to July 1st.
Okay. So it doesn't necessarily have to be in August, then we could even do it in September and roll it in with something else if you wanted.
And I just know when he said if council approves in September, January 1st, it's nothing against Rita, but Scott can confirm, you guys can confirm, there has not been one project I've worked on here since becoming auditor that didn't have some sort of delay. That's just how it is. There's a staff shortage, there's a pandemic, there's a this, there's a that. It's just how big projects go. So when he said that, I thought to myself, wouldn't it be better if we just do it the right way? We give time to folks to understand the new process, an education process, and then and not.
Then look at the other side of it, we've got 4 months to do that. We decided we wanted to forge ahead now.
I was kind of thinking that too, it'd be nice, because otherwise it's like, you're starting in the middle of a year next year, and, I'm not saying that you won't get the value out of it in a half a year, but, it's just.
Well, really, we won't though. And how much money would we give up by doing that? Give up $114,000. Is there a way that we can fast track this thing now and get it? I mean, it's not like they're a fly by night company that no one deals with.
Right. I mean, I don't know. I think that, this is a play we've always ran in my house. It's called Chaos. It's crazy. So.
Yep. We're not uncomfortable. We're not making anything happen.
So.
Out of control.
So how much will that upend your life if we do decide we want to forge ahead?
Come on, bring us in some miniature TSAP.
Oh, you guys,
Listen, not all of us are campaigning. I'm just saying.
You guys teach. Oh, it's not even the campaign I'm worried about. It's budget season is what I'm most worried about.
Oh, come on, man.
Well, I hate to break it to you, but we are at mid-August, and I was kind of hoping already for first draft. So.
Well, you gotta use your words, man.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I know it's not realistic. I was teasing.
I'll be honest with you, I've been making notes. I've been thinking about it. I got guys, we're pulling in quotes for a roof on the pool house already, and the liner. Got quotes for $220,000 to replace the liner on the pool.
If the finance committee today and council wants to move forward January 1st, then we will make it happen.
So do we have to pass it on emergency then?
I'll
So
need
you get
to-
it rolling?
I can put it on Monday's meeting if you're that confident.
I need to maybe
Take a value?
yes.
Look at this,
trying to-
I want it.
I was
Now
trying to think of an appropriate
You've
joke,
been
but
screaming
none
about
come-
this for 2 years since I've been on council.
I was trying to think of an appropriate joke, but I couldn't think of any. But you got it. You got one.
What are your thoughts, Mr. Chairman?
I don't know. Still kind of weird, man.
You just put it on your phone a minute ago.
I wasn't playing on my phone. I'm trying to turn the volume down.
Welcome back to the party, Tony.
Jeez, I'm not, Tony, no. Also, sorry, Tony.
I'm sure
He's not watching.
Yeah.
Don't get me,
Three people
Godfather.
watching. Greg, you listen. What do you think?
I think pushing it for first year is a little quick. Especially with tax season, or not tax season, but, working on the budget for next year.
It's gonna be a lot of change for a lot of people.
And, if we try to fast track it, we're not really getting any input from anybody either outside of council.
I don't think you're gonna get a single input anyways from anybody
No, but-
outside of council.
And if you get any,
You should always offer it.
it's not going to be even if you. I think even if you do offer it, you're not gonna get anything positive anyway. Well, we don't want it. See, the problem is, we either do Rita or we actually pretty much copy what Rita does in our own process as far
I
as.
kind of wondered about that.
And so, but then, that's where that's where I think the best term that Taylor used was capacity. Do you have, you basically need to have an individual, you need to hire someone to do pretty much that.
That's probably going to cost you more than
$58, yeah, that's what I was thinking. So,
you don't have personnel problems.
because
everything else goes with that.
it's
Sickness
the one thing to do the day-to-day stuff that Taylor and Judy are working on. It's going to be all the behind-the-scenes stuff that's really going to be the most cumbersome of it. I think the notes, the letters you're sending, the emails, the calls, the follow-up, the payment plans, and then when they miss a payment plan, we gotta, let's get that reestablished or whatever. Oh, we changed credit cards, or we changed, bank accounts, okay, I think that's where your more tedious efforts, are gonna be at. So I think that it's of greater value to us, I think, than having.
Well, it does kind of
someone else.
fly
Not that I
against-
don't want another full-time employee, I'm just saying, like,
It does kind of fly against what we hear a lot. It would bring us into modern times.
Yeah.
And not leave Nelsonville 20 years behind the times.
Well, and if you guys, if you don't mind me saying real quick, if you've
Never stopped you before.
it's never stopped me before, right? So if you've noticed, my process for improvement has been in the auditor's office is to take one thing and fix it and not, I feel like it'd be a waste of time if I would give you guys in the city a process that's a 5 out of 10 or 2 out of 5 stars. And so like, we try to make it literally the best. I was really proud to say on a Zoom meeting twice today, actually, including on the USDA audit, I said one of the things that Scott and I agree on, which is not everything, but we agree on is they asked us like, we noticed you guys have a ton of funding for projects. What's going on? And I told the audit specialist, because we're undergoing a USDA routine audit for all these federal funds we're getting. And I said, in Nelsonville, we've decided we're not going to do okay. We literally want it to be the best. And so this is my way of saying, we've taken one thing in the auditor's office, tried to make it the best. We've taken another thing and another thing. I took a swing at Rita a year ago when it was needed more thought. We worked harder on improving utility billing, which I truly believe when the software and the training and the meters are done, it's going to be the best. Like even Athens, I think everyone is going to say Nelsonville is the best utility billing process, and work order process, and in general utility process. So I guess what I mean to say is that I'm totally agreeing with, in a way, both of you, because if we didn't hire an income tax person, I don't see how do we make income tax the best experience.
Right.
How do you give people a title that doesn't include income tax and you don't pay them for income tax and then expect them to be the best at it? And I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about Judy and Tara, right? So, to me,
Manpower's not the solution.
huh?
Manpower's not the solution.
I was gonna say, to me, when I talked with Middleport's,
Process is the solution.
when I talked with Middleport's
Process.
auditor, I mean, she was like, it's literally the best thing she's done since she started. Susan's her name. Best change she's undergone. And she said she was so willing, she has no ties to Nelsonville. She was so into it, and to Rita, that she said she'd come up to one of these meetings and talk about it. This was a year ago when I talked with her. But she just is a believer.
yeah, I mean, I think I agree. This is a process and we kind of plug in to that process and we've already, they have already a lot of aggregated services within that process already that we just plug and play. We don't have to create or come up with that. It's already implemented. And then they just tailor it, unintended, they just tailor it to our city. And, so I think, that's what's appealing to me because it's a way for us to grow our city, and our services, but at minimal cost, compared to, I want to be able to hire more employees and pay better wages, but, this actually would save us a little bit of money where we would have more money for wages in other departments, so.
Plus, it would put out the signal that people need to pay their taxes because someone's going to enforce that you and you and me and you and you and you all have to pay your Nelsonville taxes. Because otherwise, hey, I've got somebody coming after me now.
Right.
Well, even if we hired,
7,000 new,
Yeah.
Maybe they need
IRS people.
yeah,
Yeah, no kidding.
but even if we hired somebody, we still don't have the access that they have.
It's true.
I don't-
And it would cost
And
more.
that would probably be a service
It
we'd
costs
have
way
to
more
pay
than
for.
50,000.
I don't even think, we can't even pay for the service that they have access to, can we?
Not for the IRS.
No,
No, we would
because
never
it
do.
actually states in here, like, the reason why they get it is because of the size of revenue that they generate.
Over $1
So
million, yeah.
that's why they're entitled to it. But like, we would probably, to even gain a level of service that's more than what we have reached here, we would have to pay that on top of, probably subscription fees on software or whatever. And then that's on, on top of our salary that we're paying and benefits. So, we're going to be paying probably over $100,000. and not, I mean, I don't want to belittle anybody who would be in that position, but get less.
Sure.
For it. You know, I
Absolutely.
mean,
We're not hiring an expert.
correct.
You're hiring someone. And on the savings side of it too, how much does our software cost a year?
We write them, I'll have to look it up. I want to say it's 2,000 or 3,000.
Okay.
It's not, you know,
Is that another 4,000?
For outdated software.
for outdated
Yeah.
software.
No, it's
So-
antiquated.
That we don't get support for anymore. We have to
No,
pay,
There's
but they have to pay
$7,000
if they change
savings
it.
on that. It's announced they're paying $50,000, we're paying $43,000.
Right.
We tell them how things, they wouldn't give customer support.
And the last thing I was gonna say, and I meant to say earlier was, I would love a hybrid version of it. And what I mean by hybrid is, he talked about how some fiscal officers just want it to be, we don't even handle income tax, call Rita. And that's actually what Middleport and a few others do in the region. But I would actually like something where, say we've got a customer who just doesn't understand online filing, wants to stop by. I want to be able to look up the account and be like, here's how I can help you. So I don't
And
expect
he said
it.
you could do that, yeah.
Yeah, I don't expect it. I personally would think it'd be a bad idea for council to totally just say, income tax be gone.
Oh,
I would think that
I
we
think
would.
that's up to the auditor's office. That,
Yeah.
Well,
I
that's
mean-
true in a way, but it just depends on like what agreement they set. But I would say the best version is we have all of these additions, and then say the person can't get a hold of somebody, which is not a complaint I've heard, but I mean, phone systems are phone systems, right?
Right.
And if they call over here and say,
I'm
can
down
you
here
just,
all day.
Yeah, we
Can
should
you-
have to have customer service here.
right, like if you call me and say, I just cannot understand, I can't get through, what's my balance? I want to write a check today. And
I'm in here paying
You
my
just tell
water
them.
bill already.
Yeah,
Can I,
walk
can
over
I,
and do
can I
check.
pay a check for my
Absolutely.
income tax?
yeah.
You never want to say no.
No, yeah, you never
You know,
take money, yeah.
You know,
I was
yes,
surprised.
yes, please,
Yes.
please, yeah,
Yeah.
you know.
I was surprised to find out that a significant number of the Rita villages and cities do that. They say, we won't even
Well,
talk
but it-
income tax.
Yeah, but
Send it.
Middleport, is Middleport
Yeah.
smaller than Nelsonville, right?
It's very- yeah,
it's a little
Yeah,
small.
so yeah,
It's a little
they've got probably, what, a handful of employees, so it's like.
Yeah, I don't know if they have anybody full-time in the city office. I guess like
Right.
the mayor's part-time, you know.
Right.
that's what it is.
So I think that, you know, we do have more capacity in that, you know, standpoint,
Yeah.
but I agree. I think that if we have still some level of control or
Yes.
input on it, I mean, I'd still want to have service here. I think that's ultimately better because there are just some people on why am I saying this to Worthington?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you know, or Cleveland or Brecksville, what, you
Sure.
know, why can't I give it to you? Right? I mean, I know you, right? I know your face. I see your face every month. Like, you know, they feel comfortable with it, right?
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, that makes sense, is to have that.
That seems to be the strongest.
So
version.
I don't know, the more even we talk about it, I think I'm more comfortable.
I have a lot of confidence in you and your office. I think you can make it happen. So I feel positive about it as well.
I don't want to sidetrack too far, but if we can get some annexation, it would be easier with the RETA program to plug that annexation into the taxes.
That is true.
I like the way it thinks.
He's a thinker, that guy.
Good stuff right there.
Please annex before
I agree.
2030.
I don't want to sidetrack too far into that, but
Please annex.
So I'll tell you what, I'm for moving forward to try to make a one transition, so I'll leave that up to you to make it happen. What do you think, Scott? You up for the challenge?
Yes.
what else does he have?
I'm gonna need you.
Yes.
Okay.
We don't do anything normal around here.
But Frank, to be helpful until January 1st, I'm gonna need you to stay on the sidewalks instead of the streets, okay?
Well, there is no sidewalks down there. It's nothing but gravel street.
I think we've gone astray.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I did have one thing about the utilities. You were talking about utility program, I had to write it down.
Yeah.
One thing I do not like about the utility, when I'm on the website and I view the bill on there, the PDF comes up, it only has the account number, not the service address.
Ooh.
When you pull up your bill online, is that what you're saying?
I have multiple bills, so like when I pull up any of them.
Yeah.
Like I
Just
can
gives you
check,
account
because I don't know them by account number.
You know what's important on there? How much you gotta pay it, sir?
Yeah. The only one that I know that is my address is because it actually has the garbage added to it.
Oh, yeah.
But the thing is, all the other just all of them. When you go to pull up the bill, it does not have the service address on there. So I'll have my business name on there on all those bills, which is the same, and it's all mailed to my home address, but the actual
Isn't it your name and your rentals?
no, I don't keep, there's very few, water bills of my rentals that I actually keep in the business names only because I have to, but on those particular units. And so, but it doesn't tell me what location it is. It only gives me an account number. I don't know.
Speaking of online payment, how do they go with the mayor's work website?
I just
I don't
referenced the
know.
note.
I'll have to ask
I didn't
him.
know that.
I asked him about a month ago.
I've been meaning
I asked a
to
couple
mention it
weeks
to
ago,
you,
they were
and I keep forgetting,
testing,
so.
They got it.
I don't know why they do that, but I'll ask them.
I don't
So
know.
wrap it up there.
When you pull.
Corey, when I
the PDF,
randomly
just-
think about it, I
doesn't have
ask
those services.
That's the same for me,
Yeah.
it just, they just jarred my memory, so.
All right, anything else, gentlemen?
I think we've covered that.
Okay, well, we'll end this meeting, August 10th at 8:26 PM. Thank you very much for your attendance.